can hear you.
Humongous.
Wait a minute, 1 second. Let me get rid of this. There
I'm
we
trying
are.
to use an earpiece, but it's not working, and I don't know how to use Opera, but I'm learning something new.
Well, you sound great. I can hear you perfectly fine. We were on standby. We were listening to a conversation that Donald Trump called me and left a message on my answering machine. So I'm glad that you were here. How you doing this morning, Mark? You doing all right?
I'm doing really well. As I was, kind of got started when we first, when the sound wasn't working. I'm just pleased to be here. I think you're a wonderful guy. I forgot how long we've been doing this with each other back in the Fault Lines days. But it's been a few years, yeah.
5 years.
I think at first people thought we were going to fight or something.
Well,
Because we do have some differences, but we have more similarities than differences, and the differences are interesting. So,
well, I think you're rational. I just think you're rational.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why I say that, right? Like for example, Malik and I will argue over political stuff, but ultimately I think he's an honest actor.
Yeah.
It is far easier to deal with people who are honest actors, even when they disagree with you, as opposed to ideologues, who are hitting us.
Absolutely. And that's what people used to ask me all the time. Why do you go on Sputnik Radio when it's a Russian controlled whatever, you know what I mean? And the answer was always because I've been on MSNBC, I've been on CNN, I've been on Fox, I've been on countless radio shows. It's the only program I've ever been on where a producer didn't want to know what I was going to say before I said it and didn't try to steer me. On that Sputnik show, I have said critical things of Putin.
Yeah.
There was nobody in my ears saying, "Oh, you can't say that, can't do that."
It never
so I
functioned.
liked doing the show for that because it was real.
It
And
never
I don't like
functions.
fake things.
It honestly was never the way they used to talk about it. Like they would be like, Putin is controlling these people. It's like nonsense. These people, all of these people are Americans, and all of these people have just points of view.
Yes.
And it wasn't like there was no heavy hand. It was more, honestly, the heavy hand was more so on getting the story right. If we screwed something up, that's when it would be like, that's not the way it happened. You clearly know that, et cetera, et cetera. It would be like facts that we get wrong. It wasn't no heavy-handed ideological stuff like that. No, people had their points of view. You have people who were far to the right, people who were far to the left, and everything in between. And we were open for all of it. So, yeah, it sucks.
Absolutely.
It's just wild.
I'm just reminded by something. One of my favorite quotes of Aristotle is, "It's the mark of a educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without necessarily accepting it."
Yes.
And that's the sort of people I respect. That's my friends. That's my friend group.
Yeah.
We can go at each other and then go have a beer later.
Yeah. I mean, because I got to be honest, I can't. I mean, there have been stuff that we've argued and debated about, but I can't think of leaving with a bad taste in my mouth. It was just because I think, from my point of view, if I understand where the person is coming from, it doesn't. I don't have to agree. I can still see where they're coming from. I can put myself in their spot. Mark, I wanted to have the conversation with you because I was super curious about your take, A, on the election. So I definitely want to get that out first. But B, what Trump is saying he is going to do to, quote, make America great again. And what that boils down to is effectively, I'm going to pass sanctions and I'm going to use tariffs and I'm going to try to keep businesses here in one sense. And I'm going to punish companies or punish, let's say, countries that decide to de-dollarize. Meaning, it's wild. It's a weird situation. The Democratic Party doesn't really acknowledge BRICS. Like, they have not said anything about it. They haven't said anything about $35 trillion in debt. They haven't said anything about the world organizing against the way we operate. Trump, in his more lucid moments, has pointed out, they seem to be organizing against America. We seem to be losing the dollar, and these sanctions are problematic. Like, he seems to be aware of that, even to the point of him saying he's going to get rid of sanctions. Now, of course, that was collective shit fit all over the place when he basically said that. But his reasoning was pretty straightforward. We are antagonizing countries with our dollar, and we need to stop it. Otherwise, they are going to stop using that dollar. Now, the catch becomes, does he have any capability of doing that, though? Or is that horse already out the barn? So I want to do the first one first. Give me your take on the election. What did you think about Trump's win, and why do you think he won?
Sure. If you talk to different people, you get different answers, but I'm a numbers guy. I've spent, since the election, I've been drilling down. I want to see what the percentages are, that sort of a thing, because different people have different things. Some people are very knowledgeable on the issues. Some people are one-issue voters. Some people are first-time voters. What shocked me the most was he got Gen Z. I didn't see that one coming. I'll just be honest. And he didn't just get a few of them. He won big on first-time voters. Just went with Trump. And I'll tell you what I think. And I haven't heard this before. And you could certainly argue all sorts of arguments, and they're not wrong. Mm-hmm. Here's what I think. Everybody has a job. Most people. I mean, I'm self-employed, but most people have a job. When before I retired as a professor, and I still teach adjunct now and then. There are HR departments that have become sort of like the Gestapo. You can't say this, you can't say that.
Yeah.
And you and I are old enough to remember back when the Democratic Party was the fun party.
Yes.
You could go.
Noam Chomsky. What did Noam Chomsky say? He said free speech is exactly for the speech that you don't like. I mean, that was Chomsky. That was the lefty, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I remember that, being a musician, I remember back when the Republicans were wanting to ban records and wanting to, put people in jail for saying the F word or something on a, and even some Democrats were doing that, but it was the Republicans that were leading it. They were the buzzkill party, was the Republicans. And it has switched over the last, whatever it's been, 8 years, 12 years. I mean, what I find fascinating, Democrats turn on themselves on a dime. I mean, you say the wrong word, you have to walk on eggshells. And I think after a while, people got tired of that. And, people like to feel good. And what I've noticed, at least where I live, there's a spring in everybody's step. Even a lot of Democrats I know secretly, they're not going to come on this show and say it. Even they're like, you know what? Everybody just seems happy, and I'm kind of happy too.
Yeah.
And my Democrat friends that voted for Harris, every single one of them are appalled as information keeps coming out about how that campaign was so poorly done. I know. Think the numbers that are coming out have blown my brain. $1 billion. $1
billion. 3 months.
And they're in debt.
Yeah, $20 million in debt.
And you might know this more than I mean, I'm an economist, not a political scientist. I am unaware of millions of dollars being paid for endorsements ever in any previous campaign.
That one's weird because she gave Oprah Winfrey $1 million. I mean, which is just mind blowing, right? Oprah Winfrey didn't disclose that when she's out there giving Kamala Harris an endorsement. Al Sharpton gave him a ton of money. Again, she came on the show, did an interview with him, and it came across as if, oh yeah, we're just having an interview because I endorse this person, not that I have a financial relationship with this person. It is. And I don't
know why those celebrities would do that. They're not broke, and it destroys their brand. I mean, imagine if I came on this show and I advocated for XYZ, and then later everybody found out that I had a financial interest in XYZ.
Yeah,
and I lose all credibility forever, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, what it shows is these. For instance, Eminem. I'm an Eminem fan. He looked like a hostage when he read that. I am here to endorse Kamala Harris for president. And every Eminem fan noticed it. They're like, what the heck? Yeah. And so the big picture is the Democrats became buzzkill.
Yeah, they did.
Second, I don't care if you hate Trump. You cannot take away he worked his tail end off on this campaign. Yes, he went on every podcast. He went on podcasts I've never heard of. Yeah. He went on Gen Z podcasts. He went everywhere that would have him. And now we know Kamala had a chance to reach the Joe Rogan audience. What politician in their right mind doesn't want the biggest platform on the planet?
Right there. That is exactly your point, right? Like Democrats, they've lost the ability to talk to regular people.
Yeah,
it was the CNN thing where the guy was trying to point out why they were running trans ads. And as he was saying, he says, yeah, we don't really want little boys to play with little girls. And the guy flips out. He's like, they're not boys. And he's like, okay, so what do you want me to call them then? And the guy's like losing his mind. And it's kind of like, dude, that's the point, right? That's the issue. You're doing that. Like nobody is saying anything hateful, nobody's saying anything racist or bigoted, and you are losing your mind over this guy's description of him just explaining the situation to you from his framing of it. And, going on Joe Rogan has one of the largest podcasts in the history of podcasts. And yet Democrats see him as the devil, which is wild to me because she's running around with Liz Cheney. Like, it's almost as if like regular people are an anathema to the Democratic Party, but Liz Cheney, a warmonger, perfectly fine. It is bizarre. It is utterly bizarre to me.
And then also, as you know, I play in a jazz band, and we play 1 to 2 times a month, that sort of a thing. And I'm the only white dude in the band. And, there's these, I don't even know what to call them. Let's call them intellectual wannabe. Let's call them intellectual dilettante white women.
Okay.
Have the balls to go up to a black person and tell them that they're not being black right. I don't know what that would feel like. I'm not black. I don't know what that would feel like, but
that would not be
either really
tolerated.
Funny or it's just offensive as can possibly be. And they don't get it. They don't realize that they had a demographic in hand and they just said, you know what? We don't respect you at all. Just vote like you're told. Then they bring out Obama. Everything
that backfired.
I mean, they assume that Obama can say 2 + 2 = 5, and black folks are going to say, yes, massa, yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's exactly what, if you say it, it's true. I mean, I try to put myself from an empathic perspective. What would I do if somebody, I was in county jail maybe 40 years ago, I'll confess something. The only time it's ever happened was I was talking to some folks, when you're in that situation, you have
everybody's equal.
Kind of like you kind of form little tribes, and the tribes I kind of formed. Nobody told me the white folks can't go hang out with black folks, and so this dude comes up and he goes, "Why are you hanging out with the darkies?" And I just look at him and I go, "I think I'm going to hang out with whoever I want." That was that, but that's the only time that's ever happened. But I just can't imagine someone coming up to me and saying, "You're not being quite right." I mean, that has to be the most offensive thing.
I mean, that's the Joe Biden thing, right? If you don't vote for me, you ain't black. I mean, but the Democratic Party is very bizarre on this. They have gotten to the point of believing that they own votes. Like whether it's the Hispanic vote, whether it's the black vote, like you see them on MSNBC losing their minds and being spiteful about it. Like they're like, you Hispanics that voted for Trump, when your family members are being taken, you own it. Or they're going after the Arabs. When Trump goes after you, you own it. I mean, they are being bitter and angry that these groups, they are inverting the political process. It is the job of the candidate to go get the vote. And somewhere along the way, they stop believing that. And to make it worse, it's not like Kamala Harris ran to her base. Like if you were running around with Republicans and you're a Democrat, how is that enticing to your base to any degree? It's not. Like she ran a horrible campaign and spent $1 billion to do it. It's just wild to me.
And she got nothing for it. I mean, nothing. Trump just did podcasts are free.
Yeah.
But to my knowledge, there's no report that Trump paid anybody.
Trump only brought in $400 million. That's it.
Yes.
He brought in almost a third less than what Kamala Harris did. And to rub salt in the wound, got on Twitter the next day and said, "Hey, I just learned that Kamala Harris is in debt. And we didn't spend much money because we had free advertisement. So we, in interest of a unified country, need to help Kamala Harris with her debt." Like that is just brutal.
That was a master troll right there. I mean, that gets the Troll of the Year award to me.
Yeah. $1 billion and $20 million in debt in 3 months. That is mind blowing. It is hard for me to get across that much money being spent, burned on the White House lawn.
And if she's that bad, I don't want her running the country. I'll just be blunt. I mean, if you can't manage your own, if you can't manage $1 billion, how are you going to manage $37 trillion?
Look, I didn't vote for Trump.
And this is what I am utterly convinced about. And again, disclaimer, I'm not a political scientist. I analyze I analyze primarily economic things, not political things. And when I analyze political things, it's usually, what are the economics around that? But, that being said, I think the Democrats made a giant mistake by letting their party apparatchiks choose the nominee instead of having a primary.
That too.
I think if they would have had a convention, a primary, these errors, these fatal flaws of Harris would have been disclosed. Yeah. I remember when Tulsi just destroyed her. That's when I became a Tulsi fan.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Tulsi's my favorite politician on the stage today. That's who I would have voted Democrat. Just imagine here. I had texted you, I think it was last night or something. I go, I was driving the other day and I thought, what if Biden would have chose Tulsi?
Oh, he would have never.
I would have voted her. I would have voted for Biden.
Oh, they hate her guts, Mark.
Oh, they hate her. I think worse than they hate Trump.
Yeah, they can't not stand her. And look,
and again, if you're a person of any kind of melanin in your skin, apparently you're not allowed Democrat orientation or something. I don't get the attitude. I think they think that it works and it doesn't. It backfires.
This goes back to your original point that Democrats used to be different. They used to be anti-war. At the very least, they used to be a big contention of it. These days, they hate her because she points out Obama got us involved in a regime change war that got 500,000 people killed. And they flipped out. She went on CNN talking about this. She went everywhere that she could talking about this. And they hate her for it. Even the Ukraine stuff, when she brings up, it's like, this is regime change war again. And we're agitating Russia on this. They hate her guts. And of course, the thing that you mentioned, this.
Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president. But I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed.
This ended Kamala Harris' first campaign. That literally ended her campaign. I mean, like, it was brutal.
Destroyed her.
They only gave her like 30 seconds, and that's all it took.
She never recovered. And I think these nominations, part of economics, anyone that has followed me, through the show, that kind of thing, knows that my one word that drives economics markets or that drives markets is expectations.
Right. Right.
If you don't smash expectations, the Fed has no power. Their power is to break expectations of the future markets, all that kind of stuff. And what the Trump win and the big win and the nominees he's doing out is shattering expectations. Again, I just find everybody to have a better spring in their step. I bet you $100 against the nickel. Putin has a better spring in his step. He's like, maybe I don't have, as a last resort, participate in World War III. Maybe this isn't required. Maybe Trump will come. Maybe Trump has some common sense and realizes, okay, we don't. Let's put this thing aside. And it just seems true to me. I mean, markets are up. I'm a consultant, so I deal with small businesses all around the Atlanta Metroplex, and even the people that are Democrats feel better about business activity tomorrow. And that cannot be overestimated, the impact of that. Now, this country has some severe problems that Trump's not the Messiah. He's not going to be able to come and fix a $37 trillion debt.
Right.
And the $37 trillion debt is manageable if and only if the dollar remains the reserve currency.
Yeah. Mark, God, man, I have to get you back. Now that this is working.
Sure. But now that we got the technology figured out.
Right, now that part is fixed. Because my audience was pissed off because I was playing their Trump call. But from your point of view, what happens if we lose that status? I mean, because right now we're at 50%, 56%, give or take. We were at 70-something% like 20 years ago. And the BRICS countries are actually organizing with this notion of, look, we're not attacking the dollar. However, we are trying to go in our own currencies because we don't really trust you. What happens if we lose the reserve currency? Because Putin has already pointed out that is a weapon. That basically that is a strategic resource to be able to use the dollar in the way that it's used. He pointed out that we spent $10 trillion out of thin air over the course of the last, let's say, 5 years. And he was like, what the hell? How are you just making money out of thin air like that? And think about what you can use that money for if you could just create money out of thin air. What happens? And this will be the last question. What happens if we lose the reserve currency and we're $38 trillion in debt?
It would be worse than a nuclear attack.
Really?
Yes, it's from an economic perspective, it's an absolute nuke because what Americans don't realize is inflation stung, and it really stung the working poor, right?
Uh-huh.
What Americans don't realize is that inflation hit Europe much worse because they printed more money as a percentage than we did.
Really?
And yes, and oh yeah, the EU turned on the printing presses. But the other big player is about 70% of all US dollars are held outside the United States. Most of the transactions in dollars are not in the United States, it's outside the United States. So it's just simple supply and demand. It's just your economics 101 class. You know, what would happen? It doesn't matter the reason. What would happen if 50% of the demand, of the external demand for the US dollar just stopped overnight? Well,
the value would drop, the dollar would drop.
The Federal Reserve would be forced, because we have to pay our bills. Right. The Federal Reserve would be forced to print some more money to buy treasury bills from the US Treasury. So you have a quasi-government agency printing fictitious units of value and exchanging it with the Treasury Department for fictitious pieces, for instruments of fictitious value backed only by faith. And it's faith that keeps the world's monetary system afloat. Now, most countries don't want that to happen, because if the United States melted down economically, mm-hmm. You know, there's that expression, when the United States catches a cold, the world, gets the flu. When we sneeze, the world gets cold. Those sorts of things that they say, and that's very true. Wow. So, but if it happened, if we ever defaulted by our own International Monetary Fund that we had, we didn't just have a hand in establishing it, we did establish it. We would have to go into receivership. The IMF would come in and do just like they did Greece and say, okay, you guys have Social Security. You're going to have to cut Social Security benefits. You're going to have to cut pensions. You're going to have to cut military retirements. You're going to have to do this, or we're not going to help.
Mark, I'm going to have to close
the only thing I could think of to get out of, and this is when countries go to war. I mean, think about it. Countries go to war when their back is against the wall. This is what I didn't like about Ukraine. It doesn't matter whether you like Putin or not. Ukraine to us is a minor thing. I mean, the only reason we're there anyway is it's clear to me the neocons looked at it and said, you know what, let's just destroy Ukraine, and that will deplete Russia's, that will deplete their resources, and we don't have to really hardly do anything except spend some money.
Mark, I'm going to have to close it on that.
Sure.
And I've had to get you back, man, because this is
anytime,
a fascinating conversation. Thank you for this, man. I'm glad the technology is finally working, and I want to get you back next week. I swear to God.
Thank you. Anytime.
Thank you. Mark Frost, the economist, professor, consultant, drummer, Eagle Scout, Marine, capitalist, Schumpeterian, recovering libertarian. You can follow Mark on Twitter at FrostyCat. Now,
this is Frederick von Hayek.
Oh, that's the cat.
Yeah.
No, cat. We never get a chance to see him.
All righty. All right, man.
You have a good one, man. All right.